What is up, guys? Here to break down this first week of college football. Been a fun start to the year. Last week we obviously got started. I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to get in here. I know you're probably getting notifications just going live, but we got about an hour and a half until lock. Obviously, some time to adjust later on for the later games, but got to get those lineups in the next hour and a half to start with. What I'm going to do and the way I'm going to do this going forward each week is I'm really going to narrow down what I talk about. I don't want to talk about every team. We don't have time to go through that. Obviously, I've narrowed down the pool. So I want to go through. I'm going to talk about each game and the line in it and what I'm doing overall with it. But as far as what I'm targeting, I'm going to go through each play that I'm targeting as we go through those games there. So I'm not going to talk about every team's players and their situations and things like that. I'm really going to narrow down, like I've done, my player pool. So I'm going to try to keep this until about 11 o'clock. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I'll definitely be sure to get to those and answer. If you haven't joined us over at Patreon, the link is below there, patreon.com/Jagerbombs, $10 for each sport, or $20 for all sports each month. We obviously are covering almost every sport, I think. Tennis, soccer, college football, NFL coming up. UFC is tonight. MLB each and every day with Chris. Going to be a fun fall. Got a lot going on. So be sure to join us over there. Grab a copy of our cheat sheets in each sport, and then grab the core plays as well as we highlight those. So without further ado, I'm going to hop right in over to the sheet and go through each game and kind of what I'm looking at. So the first game, Stanford, Kansas State. Kansas State is a -3 favorite in a 54 total. And it's going to take me just a minute, I think, to get back to talking football terms and lines and things like that. So bear with me for a few. But Kansas State at home is the -3 favorite here in the 54 total. Not in love with this game overall. On the Stanford side, Austin Jones, it kind of everything runs through him. Bryson Tremaine is the wide receiver with Elijah Higgins. Tremaine should be the top option for Stanford this year, but Elijah Higgins is a cheap receiver if you want to go there. And then on the other side, Deuce Vaughn, they're 3 favorite at home. I think he's a very good option. He can be boom or bust from time to time. If you flip over to the sheet, you can see I have my favorite plays highlighted. There's Austin Jones, had a good year last year in their limited 6 games, averaged 20 or 91 rushing yards a game, and you can see the volume that he has, 21 attempts, and also catches some passes as well. 3.5 receptions a game for 26 yards, just adds 5 points at least to his floor there. So he's a fine option as a dog, though, 7,200. And then Deuce Vaughn is much more reasonably priced, 6,300, and he does a lot for this team. They kind of turned to him late last year as more of a bell cow type guy, and you can see what he's done. Scrimmage yards, he's averaging 107 between receiving and rushing, catches passes, does a little bit of everything. So he's one of the core plays for me, 6,300. It's kind of tough, and I mentioned it in chat. The quarterback position is tough for me this week because I don't have any pay down options that I love. So I'm stuck trying to pay mid to upper range for both quarterbacks in the super flex and regular QB spot. So Deuce Vaughn does help things fit quite a bit in this first game. So that's really all I'm looking at. I'm avoiding rest of Stanford, not playing the quarterback or pairing him with either of the receivers I mentioned, and not playing the quarterback for Kansas State, Skylar Thompson, who was out last year with injury. So obviously could come back and surprise, but not going to go there. So moving on to the next one, we got Oklahoma and Tulane. This game was originally at Tulane. Obviously, with the hurricane, it was moved to Norman, minus 32. Favorite at home now for Oklahoma, and a 67 total. And if you look at this, I was kind of back and forth on if I wanted to play Spencer Rattler in a game that they're going to blow him out. Maybe they don't. He don't get the stats. But if you look at this, Tulane was much better against the run last year, ranked 42. And then you got Oklahoma, who was 14th in the pass in the country against the Tulane defense, who was 115 against rushing or passing. So Spencer Rattler is firmly in play. If you look at him, obviously he's 9,700. Doesn't do a ton of running is the only thing. He does have a little bit in the arsenal, but nothing you're excited about. And I don't expect him to do a whole lot of that this game, but I could see for sure 350 and 3 for Spencer Rattler pretty quick in this game. And who am I pairing him with? You definitely have to pair Spencer Rattler in my eyes if you're playing him. And that's going to definitely be Mims and Mario Williams. Mario Williams is cheap. The talk is that he's one of their most talented guys. Mims is not cheap, but he should be their top guy through the season, and he's 7,700. I have him listed as GPP only. He's right on the fringe of being a core play for me, but I try not to highlight too many people as core plays. So he's going to be a GP, one of the top GPP options on the slate for me to pair with Spencer Rattler. And then going down, let's see. Mario is Mim Price, is what I was getting at. So I think he does see the field here. Hopefully he gets on the field a little early with Rattler. He is a guy you could play by himself without Rattler. If you kind of went the route of they're going to blow him out early, Mario Williams is going to get some run, you could go that way for sure. So that's what I'm looking at in the passing game for Oklahoma. In the backfield, we're going to have a split between Gray and Kennedy Brooks. Gray transferred in. He is the higher-priced running back now. So Eric Gray, and I'm not really on him today, 6,900. I'd much rather play, if I am going to the backfield, Kennedy Brooks at 5,900. And what I see, and maybe I could be definitely wrong about this, but I see it as an even split in that backfield. I think they're listed as or on the depth chart. So that's where I'm going with Oklahoma. They're in a very good spot. It's just a matter of how much do the starters put up, really. Moving on, Michigan and Western Michigan. Michigan at home is a 16.5-point favorite, 66 total. You're not going to see Michigan projected to score 41 points much this year, I don't think. And I'm not super excited about playing them here. But I think you do have to have a little bit of interest in them. So Blake Coram has been talked up in camp in the backfield. I think he's going to split with Haskins for sure. But in this type of environment, he is the one that I want to play if I'm going to the Michigan backfield. And he's 3,600. So he's been talked up a lot, had a really good camp. So I think he is the running back I would go to. And really the only wide receiver that I want to play is Cornelius Johnson for GPPs. And if you go over to the wide receiver tab, he is priced in the mid-range there, 6,700. It's just a matter of I don't really want to play Ronnie Bell. He didn't do a ton last year. So I think I'm going to stay away from him. And if I go to that receiving core, it's going to be Cornelius Johnson. I'll full fade Western Michigan. I'm going to take Stanford on a lot of teams on this big of a slate, and Western Michigan is going to be one of them. Even though they are projected to score 24 points, I think it's just not a spot that I want to target on the road. I think they go under 24 points personally. I think this game goes under overall. If I had to make a bet there, it'd be under 66 for sure. So that's what I'm looking at, those two options for Michigan. If you want to go there, Coram and Cornelius Johnson. Moving on to the next one, Penn State and Wisconsin. I'm going to make this very quick, and you're going to notice I do this a lot with some of these Big Ten games all year. Penn State and Wisconsin is going to be a full fade for me. I expect a slow paced. I mean, we got a 50 total. That is a very low total for college football. So I will not be going to either of these teams, and that's as much as I'm going to talk about them. So moving on, Oregon and Fresno State. We saw Fresno State last week. Had a much easier matchup with UConn. We're not going to be targeting them as much here. We remember the old Oregon teams, I think, as not having a very good defense, but they're kind of middle of the road, and they're expected to be improved this year. So Fresno State is not going to be a spot that I'm going. If you were, you would have to go to Ronnie Rivers or Jalen Cropper, who should be their top options. Rivers gets a lot of volume in the backfield, so I suppose he could get there with that volume, but I'm going to be staying away. On the other side, Oregon, they're definitely in a good spot. This team is not really the offense we're used to the old days of run and gun completely, but they still do move fairly quick. Anthony Brown gets the nod at starter. He kind of took over some last year. He is mobile and definitely in our player or my player pool today as one of the core quarterback options. And this is what I'm running into. I like these top price quarterbacks, and I'm having to pay down at other spots when there are other good options. So Anthony Brown is 8,300. I think you can definitely go there if you need to. I'm going to check real quick. I'm going to flip back and see if we got any questions. Yeah, glad to have everybody in here. I'm going to try to do this every single week. It's going to be an awesome season. We really crushed last year. We got off to a good start so far. Last night was a good night for me. The night before was not a good night for me. And it's kind of similar last week. I had one day that was pretty good and one day that wasn't very good. So we're going to try to get off to a good start on Saturday with this main slate. So Anthony Brown is the quarterback for Oregon that I will be targeting for sure as a core quarterback play on the slate. CJ Verdell, we're going to see a split, but I think Verdell is the option that we want. And he is priced at $6,000, which is much lower than what we're used to seeing him. And it is because we're going to have that split. But I think he's the one that we want to target. The rest of Oregon to pair with Anthony Brown, you don't necessarily have to pair anybody with Anthony Brown, but Troy Franklin and Spencer Webb, the tight end, who's coming back from injury. They really involve the tight end, and he is very reasonably priced at $3,400. And then Troy Franklin, who is listed as a starter, obviously no stats, but he's $3K. True freshman coming in, listed as that starter. I think he's the main pairing that I want to do with Anthony Brown if I'm going to go there. So that's what I'm looking at. Those four options are the top ones for Oregon for me. Anthony Brown, Verdell, Troy Franklin, and Spencer Webb. Moving on, we got Alabama and Miami. This is one of the marquee matchups of the week. Alabama, 19.5-point favorite in a 61 total. A lot of new faces for Alabama, but we know with them they just kind of reload. So I think we got to consider them. And I'm going to full fade Miami. I'm not playing somebody against Alabama until they show me that they don't have a good defense, which I don't think that's going to be ever at this point. But Alabama will for sure be a target. Bryce Young, 8,900. He's one of those other higher priced quarterbacks that I'm going to be targeting, no doubt. The rest of Alabama is a little tougher. As far as pairing him, we got Jamison Williams, who's the transfer from Ohio State. I think he is very reasonably priced in that mid-range. I think he's like 5,000. $5,200 for Jamison Williams coming in from Ohio State. I think he's a fine option, one of the core receiver plays for me. And like I said, priced down a little bit more. And I don't think he's going to be very high owned because there's other options for Alabama that people are going to want to play. John Mechie should be the top guy in this system this year. Slade Bolden in the slot. Jojo Earl is a value play as well that I think you can go to. That should definitely get some looks. Jojo Earl is 4,000. Obviously, John Mechie is the highest priced receiver at 8,100. I just early in the year, I don't know. I mean, I think John Mechie is going to have a very nice year. I like him for GPPs today. If you're pairing one or two in a stack there with Bryce Young, but I just don't really love him. So if I had to rank Alabama's wide receivers, it would be Jamison Williams. Mechie would be still number 2. Jojo Earl would be 3. And then Slade Bolden would be next. So I think you can definitely play all of them in multiple lineups. The running back situation, we don't, unlike last year, we don't have a specific lead guy. So it's going to be Robinson, Sanders, and McClellan. I think all are in play because we know what they can do. And apparently my screen, let's see, stop sharing. But anyway, back at the Alabama running backs, we got Bijon Robinson, 6,500, I think is viable. He should have the first shot. But really what it comes down to with this Alabama backfield is what do you think? How do you think the game plays out? Do you think it stays close? If so, you probably want Bijon Robinson. If you think they blow them out and get ahead, I think you do want one of the other guys, whether it's Sanders or McClellan. I think Sanders is min price. Let's check here. McClellan is 5,800 and Sanders is min price. So I think you can go to those. But I think I only would if you think the game blows out. So that's kind of where I'm at with Alabama. Really like them overall. Going to like them a lot this year. But Jamison Williams, I think, is going to be the under-the-radar guy that I'm going to target today for sure for Alabama. So moving on to the next one, and I can see I'm running a little behind of what I wanted to do, but oh well. Miami, Ohio, and Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a 22.5-point favorite and a 50 total. Still projected for 36 points. I think Cincinnati is a very good GPP team. They return a lot of players from last year against the team in Miami, Ohio that can't really stop. I don't think they can stop Cincinnati. They're not a bad defense against the competition they usually play in the MAC, but I think Cincinnati is completely different. We got Desmond Ridder back at quarterback. He is very high priced, 9,200. I think you can go there, though. And then the other options for Cincinnati would be Jerome Ford in the backfield. I really do like him a lot. He shouldn't be getting there's not a split in that backfield anymore with Dokes gone. And then the receivers, I really like Alec Pierce. Finally seems to be healthy. He was out a lot last year. I really like him at 7,200. I think he could have a very big day against this defense. You can pair him with Ridder or not. And then Josh Weil is the tight end. It would be the other receiving options. And he's 4,600. He had led the team, I think, in touchdowns last year with 6 on 28 catches. So I really like him. And you can pair him, like I said, with Ridder or not. I wouldn't play, obviously, both Pierce and Weil without Ridder. But I think you could play one of those receivers with Ford in a small little stack because I think Cincinnati is a very good GPP option, and I will be fading Miami, Ohio on the other side. Marshall and Navy, this is a little bit of an ugly game. We know Navy slows it down with the triple option. They have a quarterback competition still going on, and as of now, I'm going to be staying away from them. It's just too – we don't know enough about it. Xavier Arline, and Ty Lavati. I'm going to butcher names like I do in soccer, but I'm staying away from Navy. Full fade for me. Marshall, Rasheen Ali is listed as an starter on the depth chart. Very cheap, I think $3,300. Grant Wells comes back at quarterback. You could pair him, but I will be fading. The only play in this game for me is going to be Rasheen Ali. And I'm pretty sure he's 3,300. Yeah, 3,300. Like I said, listed as the co-starter on the depth chart. So really like that play. For value, if you're going down to the bargain bin for running backs. Indiana and Iowa. This is another one of those Big Ten games, and I don't have a lot of interest outside of one guy. And it's on the Indiana side. Iowa's the 3.5-point favorite at home and a 46 total. I think that's the lowest on the slate. It is. But there's one guy for Indiana, and we played him and this passing game quite a bit last year. And it's going to be Ty Fryfogle. Should be able to have a lot of target share this year. You can pair him with Penix, but I'll be fading Penix today. Fryfogle is a great standalone play. If you go over to his stats from last year, he's in this mid-range too. 6,800, 90 yards per game receiving. Just kind of does everything for them. I think he's going to have a major share of the targets for them this year. You could go DJ Matthews as well for value if you want to go the cheaper route of their receivers. And I think he's in the 4K. No. Well, where did he go? Matthews, sorry. 3,600 is a good option too. Should fill that slot route void that they will have this year. So I think you can definitely go there. I'm avoiding their running back situation, and I'm not playing anybody from Iowa. I'll be fading. The only two I would even consider be Tyler Goodson and Tyrone Tracy, but only playing this game for me is going to be Ty Fryfogle or Matthews. Moving on, West Virginia and Maryland. I kind of had, I think it was Dobe had it mentioned in chat that he likes Dougie, or however we say that name. I've yet to figure that out after even last year. But West Virginia is a -3 favorite on the road, 57 total. I really like the running game more for West Virginia than I do the passing game. You could pair the passing game with Sam James or play James standalone, but Letty Brown is a workhorse guy. That's really like what we have to try to find in college football, because a lot of rotations in these backfields, as I've mentioned in a lot of the previous games. So Letty Brown is one of the top options for me, and usually with his price, comes in a little lower owned. So if you go and look at him last year, he crushed last year. Over 1,000 yards in the 10 games, catches passes, does everything for this team. So 8,000 is more than fair for him against Maryland. On the Maryland side, I think I'll be fading them. The only play that I would even have is Tyon Fleet Davis, who should get some of the workload for them. But I think I'm going to be fading Tagovailoa in this passing game against a tough West Virginia defense. So I'm not very high on that game overall. 57 total is nothing to scoff at, but If you look at West Virginia's pass defense, number 1 last year. So why would we be playing Tagovailoa on such a big slate? Not for me. And if you look at Maryland's rush defense, 116. So kind of tells you everything I need to know about this game. Louisiana Tech, Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a minus 23 total or favorite in a 53 total. We know what Mississippi State does. They pass, they pass, they pass. Will Rogers is expected to get the start here. Again, for them, not very interested in the running back situation. They catch a lot of passes, but I don't think they have a big upside. They have a nice floor if you want to go there, but not for me. Jayden Wally is going to be one of the top receivers for me. Broke out last year, had a very strong year, and he's in that mid-range that I'm kind of falling in love with here at 6,900. As you can see, 71 a game, but he had some big games later in the year last year. So I think he continues to show that he's the lead of that wide receiver room. Mekhi Polk and Austin Williams would be the other options for cheaper. You could pair them with Rogers, but I'm not in love with Rogers. He's not a runner. He's priced up. I just don't love Rogers in this matchup. So Jayden Wally is going to be a core receiver for me. Polk and Williams, fringe value plays for that one. So a couple games left. We got Iowa State against Northern Iowa, an FCS school. So Iowa State is a minus 29.5 favorite, 52 total. We know what Breece Hall can do. The question is, does he get it done before he gets pulled? And he certainly can, but there's always that chance that he's pulled at halftime with 100 yards and a touchdown, and he's not getting there for us. So he's GPP only for me. If you think that he racks up 200 yards in the first 3 quarters, or if you think the game somehow stays close, definitely play Breece Hall. But a route that you can go for GPPs is to fade Hall and go to the passing game and hope that's where they get it done early. And then Hall won't get there more than likely. So you could go Purdy with the same cast of characters as last year, Hutchinson and Charlie Kohler. I think both of those are fine GPP options. I guess the other route you could go to fading Hall would be to play Jarrell Brock if you think that Breece Hall comes out very early, but I'm not in love with that because I don't think Brock gets enough run either, even at a very cheap price tag for this big of a slate. So the last one we got, the late afternoon game, is going to be Louisiana Lafayette and Texas. Texas is an 8.5 point favorite in a 58 total. Some question marks for sure for Texas. Hudson Card looks to have the nod at quarterback for them. And he's very talented. So he's a guy that I want in my player pool today at 6,900 in a slate that I'm starved for cheaper quarterback options. I think Hudson Card is a good GPP option, even in a tough matchup. This is a very tough Louisiana Lafayette team. 6th against the pass last year. They're very well coached. I just kind of think Texas, I mean, they're still projected to score 33 in this game. I think we do see somewhere in this range of 33-24 that is projected. I think that's about right. So I think Hudson Card is a fine option. Who do you pair him with? And he is mobile, so he can run as well. Who do you pair him with? Well, you got Moore back, who kind of killed us last year. I mean, he was one of the most frustrating players in college football a lot of last year. Whittington is a fine option for them as well. I think he would be the top target for me at the receiver position. And then Worthy is the freshman that's very cheap. that you can go there if you want the cheap option. Xavier Worthy, 4,700. And then let's see what the other two were. Joshua Moore, 6,000. I just don't know if I can get behind him. I mean, I see the appeal if you're playing Hudson Card, but I really like Whittington more at 5K. So that's where I'm going to be going, and that's how I would probably rank the three. Would be Whittington, Worthy, and Josh Moore. In the backfield, I think we have to be interested in Bijon Robinson. He's one of the top running backs today for me, 7,400. Does everything, catching passes. Will have a lot of involvement there. And could get a lot of checkdowns from Hudson Card if it comes to that point. So Bijan is one of the top running back options for me. That kind of wraps up how I feel about the slate. I'm going to go back and check any questions. KC, Ali, or Marshall splitting time, but only 3,300. Yeah, Ali for sure. I mentioned him. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going back to some of these that I missed. Mims or Pierce. I mean, they're kind of different. Well, no, they're pretty close. I'm going to go Alec Pierce. Unless you're stacking Oklahoma, I do lean Alec Pierce. Maybe I touched on that earlier, but that's kind of the way I'm leaning today, is kind of shying away from Mims a little bit. I'm going to definitely still have exposure, but Pierce would be my favorite out of those two. What position do you field in the flex and super flex? So super flex, almost every slate is quarterback only for me. Flex, it really depends on the slate. Today, I'll have a good mix of running back and receiver. Maybe lean a little more toward the receiver for me today, because I do kind of like some of those mid-range guys in the flex. But it's probably going to end up being an even split across 20 lineups for me. Yeah, super flex is almost always a quarterback for me. Very rarely do you see. I mean, last night was a potential that you could have had not two quarterbacks for sure. Best GPP FanDuel quarterback. So one thing about me is I don't play on FanDuel, but I don't. There's some teams that are not on here on the sheet that are on, I think, the slate. Let me take a quick look. Hudson Card, no, 9,500. I won't be doing that, or wouldn't be doing that. Let's see. How about I just pull up FanDuel, make sure there's not a game I'm missing. I mean, I think FanDuel goes with the night slate as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't play on FanDuel, but hold on. I'm pulling up to check it out. Pretty sure they involve all the night slate games, which would obviously have Georgia, Clemson. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they changed that too. But all right. No, it does have the 4 of the late games. So at quarterback on FanDuel, Rattler's the highest price. I do like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. The way I'm leaning early in the game or early in the day for the night slate is I think UCLA upsets LSU at home tonight. Clayton Tune against Texas Tech. Card is way too high priced. I mean, I think Bryce Young, 9,700, would be a core play for me, no doubt. What is the total in the Purdue-Oregon State game? Let me just pull up tonight's slate and check that out. All right, let me share that screen with you. Pull up the sheet here. Okay. right, so I'm pulling up tonight's slate. So we got on that one Purdue, Oregon State. Purdue at home, very high total. Yeah, so that's what I was getting to with them is I think Jack Plummer, even though he doesn't throw or run a whole lot, I think he's going to be one of the top targets for me tonight. Jack Plummer with David Bell, I think, is going to be one of my favorite pairings for the night DraftKings slate. But you could definitely play him at only 8,600 on FanDuel. Uyungale is 81. I'm not in love with that game from a DFS perspective. I'm in love with it from a watching perspective, but not from a DFS. So I think the top two FanDuel quarterbacks for me are going to be fairly paying up would be Bryce Young and Jack Plummer. Plummer, I don't know how owned he'll be. I mean, I expect with that total and them being favored that he'll get some ownership. But I don't think he'll be overly popular. Texas Tech and Houston are on FanDuel. Yeah, Texas Tech. Clayton Tune, I mean, against them, I think. I was trying to see. Sorry, I've not done a whole lot of research on this night slate fully yet. I mean, I've looked at it. That's kind of would be my two favorite quarterbacks for sure. Put Card in the super flex and his wide receiver Whittington and flex. Is that good? Paired Brown with Franklin. Yeah, that's definitely good. Two good pairings. Like I said, Whittington is the top receiving option for Texas for me, but it is a tough matchup, so definitely GPP only. And Brown and Franklin, I like Franklin for value for sure with where he's at on the depth chart. So yeah, very good pairings. Already had Bell and I'll pair him with Plummer. Plummer, we played him a lot last year. We kind of laughed about it quite a bit. The Plummer. But I'll be going back to him tonight, I think. At first glance, I really do like that being a touchdown favorite and the biggest total of the night slate. So I don't know what he's priced on DraftKings. He's very fairly priced. Oh, he's 7,800, but that's not overly. I mean, it's the second highest there. But yeah, I really like that in a game that's expected to shoot out. So if there's not any more questions, I'm going to hop off here. It's been a good first show. Hopefully we'll have Chris on for some of these as well. It's going to be a fun year. Breaking down college football with you guys. We enjoyed it doing it last year, and we definitely brought it back when we switched over to the Patreon. So hop in the Discord. I'll be in there up until lock. I will have my rankings that are going up as soon as I hop off the show on the top targets tab of the main slate sheet. So good luck to everybody today in week one, and let's take something down.